we have recovered. Okay. Knock on wood, that's the only thing we run into. Essentially, I have been doing this for a long time. Recently, I was working out at Social Butterfly with Alexandria Zakos, who worked directly with Marge Blanc, who we'll talk about this book later, but who came up with Gestalt Language Processing and did most of the research and is considered the person who understands this the most, has been doing this for a long time. We can also kind of talk for a little bit about why this, which was big in the 1970s and early 80s, kind of fell out of favor, and why it's coming back, because it's really the only thing that works with kids who are Gestalt language processors. I moved to POP, who it's a wonderful place, and their floor time philosophy and their occupational therapists and everything, just it's an amazing place. But I did bring all that information with me. A lot of this stuff comes from Meaningful Speech, which is connected to Social Butterfly. If you want to follow up, they do have freebies, and you can check stuff out there. It'll say in the presentation where I got information directly from them, but that is where I learned about this, both hands-on and during a training that they have. So I've been doing this for a while. So those are my credentials. That's kind of where I come from. This is just part of what I'm doing. It's useful for my clients, and hopefully it will be useful for you. If you have any questions during the course of the information, please feel free to put them in the chat. Danielle and Nancy, both of whom are owners at POP, very kindly are going to kind of watch the questions in chat. And if there's anything that we need to address, they're going to go ahead and let me know. We will also have a question and answer session at the end if anything comes up. We may have some folks on who are not parents or direct caregivers, but who work at facilities that are trying to incorporate this kind of thing, preschool and things like that. We will have further information and trainings for those folks later on as we get going. This is primarily going to be, this is kind of geared towards parents. Also, something to keep in mind, this is a big shift in how we think about language, and it's unusual to hear it once and get it. It certainly took me a while. And it takes just about everybody I know a little while to kind of get not only their mind around how it works, but get comfortable with the way then to talk to children who are Gestalt language processors in a way that's comfortable for everybody. It's going to take a while to get in there. So at the end of this, my goal is that you will have a general idea of what this is, a general idea of where your child or a child you know might fall into this category, and generally what you should be doing at the current level to facilitate their language at home. So hopefully a lot of information, some of it useful, and we're going to do some practice. Okay. So hopefully hit all of those things. Let me go ahead and get started. Just going to take me a second here. I had it a moment ago. I no longer need my countdown. And I also am a speech pathologist, which means I talk a lot and I talk quickly. We have a lot to cover, so my instinct is going to be to jump in and move quickly. If I am moving too quickly, you can send me a private message and say, hey, can you slow down a little? And I will try and remember to do so. Hang on just one second. Where is it? Here's the little slideshow button. I love that button. Here we go. Boop. All right. All right. So Gestalt Language Processing, don't forget to like and subscribe. POP Pediatric Therapy Services Parent Academy, April 2nd, 2023. All right. So here is a quiz. We're going to start with this. Have you ever been to work and someone has a case of the Mondays, or seen Office Space, because that's very funny, where they say someone has a case of the Mondays. Any Schitt's Creek fans out there? Ew, David, right? I understood that reference from the MCU. Que sera, sera. What, like it's hard? Ella, or Elle, gotta love her. And then here's another Gestalt. Pretty good. How are you? let's talk about what a gestalt is. A gestalt is a series of words that, taken literally, don't mean what they actually mean. Someone has a case of the Mondays doesn't mean you're sick. It means you don't want to work. It feels yucky. You're cranky. Someone has a case of the Mondays, right? I've noticed you're cranky because it's Monday. I understood that reference. It's from a movie. I don't know about you, but my family, we love to communicate with one another via movie quotes. Que sera, sera, have you ever used something in another language that you weren't sure exactly what it meant, but you understood what it meant? You used a phrase or a word that you're comfortable with. It's in a popular song, or your friends used it and you picked it up. Or when you ask somebody, how was your day? So you go to Jewel and the person says, hi, how are you today? And you say, pretty good, how are you? It really doesn't matter if you're good or not. And the person at Jewel isn't actually asking. It would be very strange if they said, how are you today? And you said, actually, let me tell you, I went to work. And if you started in on your life story, they would be so confused. This is a gestalt. Pretty good, how are you? Hi, how are you? I'm good. This is a gestalt that means I see you, I hear you. If you need something, I'm available. We're in the space together. That's the actual meaning. If we take it literally, it gets pretty confusing, right? So we all use gestalts all the time. That's something that we as humans do. So the idea that this is a strange or unusual thing, it's just not true. And the meme generation was made for this. My son's generation, 18 years old, 20 years old, that's all they communicate in. I don't know if you have older teens or early 20s, but memes are it. And knowing the meme, knowing the phrase is what connects people. So let's talk about what is natural language acquisition, which is actually the way this works, and who are Gestalt language processors. Essentially, everyone was a Gestalt language processor at one point or another. When you are an infant, when you're a baby and you're babbling, we think now that their kids are using gestalts. They're using vocal tones and little phrases that they hear the family use. And we just don't know what they're saying because they can't articulate. And then they say something that sounds like a word. They say something that sounds like mama, dada, car, whatever they're into. And everybody jumps on it and goes, oh, first word. They've been communicating the whole time, but we heard that single word. And most adults are analytical processors. By the time we become adults, for a long time, we have put together words individually to make sentences. We're using those small building blocks to communicate, build ideas. So Gestalt language processors aren't doing that. One of the things that I wanted to say right off the bat, which is very important, is that Gestalt language processing does not equal autism. It's a bit of a squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares situation. If you have a child who is autistic, there is a significant chance that they are a Gestalt language processor. But a Gestalt language processor does not mean that they have autism, and it's certainly possible to be a Gestalt language processor without it. What we're looking at with Gestalt language processing is that it is a delay, it's not a disorder. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but it is a natural way to learn language. Again, this information will be available to you in handouts. If you didn't get them from the chat, I can repost it. But this is directly from the Meaningful Speech. And it says that Gestalt language processor, they're all around us. You might be one and not be aware. Many of them fly through these stages. Some of them take a little bit of extra time. And here are some reasons why. Sensory processing, and this is why you're going to hear me say over and over again that occupational therapy and speech therapy go hand in hand. For all of our Gestalt language processors, most of them, you're going to need occupational therapy because accessing language is challenging. And in order to access the language that is difficult for us to do, our body needs to be calm. We have to be in that space where we can receive information and give information. The way it was described to me, which is I've gone by ever since because it's amazing, is if I'm working and I'm typing and a lion walks into the room, I physically cannot keep typing. My brain will not allow it. I must deal with the lion. When someone is dysregulated and their body's going in all directions and they are either sensory seeking or they're overwhelmed from a sensory perspective, they need to get that, they need to deal with the lion before they can start processing questions. Think about the words they want to say, especially if they're having trouble with that. It's going to be something that shuts down pretty quickly. Motor planning, a lot of these kids, we see motor planning issues as well. Just because you're a Gestalt language processor doesn't mean you don't also have motor planning issues. So your words don't come out clearly. So there's like a double whammy there. We'll talk about how that can look. Analytic language approaches, people who've been treating the language with that one word at a time approach, which doesn't work for Gestalt language processors. And we'll go into why that doesn't. Long or not easily mitigated gestalts. A gestalt that is mitigated means we use part of one group of words and part of another, and we stick them together. And we'll talk about, again, touch on all these, but kids now are memorizing gestalts from YouTube. They're memorizing gestalts from the television, and they memorize these big, long strings, these big, long phrases. And those are very difficult to break up and change because they're so long, you kind of don't know where to start. The next one is verbal behavioral approaches. So if we're trying to control their behavior through language, that's going to be tricky for them. Also, cognitive processing. If they're just having trouble processing the information that's coming in, that's also going to be tricky. So additional language support is great. Let's go ahead and let's talk about, these are the types of language processing. Analytical processing, and this is how most of us started, and many kids start, is we notice when they first say their first word, they say ka, and we go car, and they go, oh, well, that's a winner. And they say it again, ka, and we go car, and they say it back and forth. And the next thing we know, they have car. And every time they see a car, they're going car, car, car. And then they start adding single words with it. So they go car blue, blue car. And it doesn't matter what order those words come in. They may say mom car, car mom, but they've got those two words. And then they've got small blue car. We're adding another piece of information. And then we communicate. Let's play blue car. Let's play red car. Let's play car outside. And then they get to, let's play with the small blue car. This is analytical processing and how language builds in an analytical processor. In Okita with Gestalt language processing, they're going to start with a gestalt. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Piggy and Gerald being one of my absolute favorites. But the line from this book that I love is, we need a map. I have a map. Yes, map. Maybe a kid wants to play with cars, or they're thinking about cars. They came in a car. They are thinking about sharing a book. And they say, we need a map. I have a map. Get that map. Now, any parent or educator who has used that book knows exactly what they're talking about. If you've never seen that book before, you will have no idea what they're talking about. You want a map? Where do you want to go? Right? But when we do know, we can respond with, we need a map. I have a map. Get that map. It's time to play. And after a while, when they use this and we say, it's time to play, they'll start throwing in the it's time to play. And then people, they don't know it's time to play, but they know that the sound it's time to play means we're going to play. And that is something that is understandable to someone who doesn't know we need a map. I have a map, right? So they've got that. They've got it's time to play, but again, they don't know the single words there. And then they want to play with the car. They say, and rather than it's time to, they've got it's time to play. Great. Then we change it up and we go, it's time for the car. And they go, oh, we can crack it and add stuff onto it. Oh, and they'll go, it's time for the car. And the next thing they do is they go, wait, language gets broken into pieces. What? And that's when you see those two-word groupings. The highlight is to show that this is where they have come to the analytical processing stage. And this is why Gestalt language processing is delayed, not disordered. To varying degrees, kids can absolutely move through to analytical processing. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we are putting the goals at a level that they are able to achieve, right? We want them to be successful, so they're trying the next thing. And our goal is so that when they are sitting there in class and they're taking English and they're writing papers, or they're having to give a speech, or they're having to come up with a reason why they're doing something, they can use their own words, come up with their own phrases and their own ideas in a way that other people can understand what it is that they mean. That is our eventual goal. We can't skip there, unfortunately. We can't jump. We have to kind of take it where it is. But this is basically what we're looking at. Analytical processing, we'll get there. We start with Gestalt language processing. It's not an either or situation. We're going to talk about the different stages. Again, this is the informational portion. Don't worry about remembering this too specifically. This is a general overview, and your SLP, your teachers, whatever, should be working with you on this to make sure you can check with them and kind of see where your kid is, what might be a good idea. But it's also good to know where your child kind of falls in terms of what stage they're at. We have 6 stages. Stage 1 is going to be that self-generated Gestalt. So that Gestalt that means something to them. And these are some examples that we have that are in the book or from various people that we've worked with. So we had one kiddo who said, "It's showtime," whenever it was time for anything new. It's showtime. And they say it the same way every time. It's showtime. We had one kiddo who was running around asking for things at the store. And mom got flustered because they were checking out, and mom said, "That's too much money," or "It's too much money." And the kiddo went, "Oh," and put it back. And after that, every time they were asking for something they shouldn't be asking for, or they wanted something they couldn't have, they would say, "It's too much money." They didn't mean it's too much money. They meant, I can't have that right now. So if there was a cookie on the counter and they knew they couldn't have the cookie till after dinner, they would say, "It's too much money. I want that, but I know I can't have it." When something is lost, "Don't worry, I'll help you find your mama." And it had nothing to do with mama. It just had to do with, I'm going to help. I'll help you find it. We'll find it. Or even that's lost. So they couldn't find their glove. "Don't worry, I'll help you find your mama." And then this one, I have a kiddo who is super awesome. And I got to the end of something that I was doing, and he was having a great time, but he got to the end of it and he looked at me and he went, "Don't forget to like and subscribe." And it was perfect because I understood exactly what he meant. That was fun. I'm clicking off now. Like, we are all done. And it was just such a great example of, if I had taken that literally, I would have gone, "This isn't YouTube. You can't like and subscribe to me." But I knew that wasn't what he was saying. What he was saying was, "Wow, that's fun. Done now." And it's useful to know. So those are the first ones you're going to see. Kiddos are going to come up with their own. And it may not be super clear. This kiddo said, "Don't forget to like and subscribe." And I knew exactly what he was saying. Your kiddo might say, "Bye," and get the cadence of it, get the prosody, which is the way the voice moves, without getting the specific words. It's a little bit of a detective, got to do some detective work. In stage 1, a trained Gestalt is one that we introduce, that we say, okay, this kiddo needs language 4, moving from one thing to the next, getting something else that they need, getting assistance if they need it, shared joy, right? So we might train, "Let's get out of here. Want some more? We could try again. I need some help. What's next?" And what we want is, we want language that serves the child, that this will help the child express something they want or need, and do it in a way that someone who works with this child or a stranger who doesn't know them will understand and not get confused, right? All right. All kids, if your SLP should be working, or you should be working on language that comments What do they think about this thing that they're talking about? They can point and say horse. That's great. Do they like the horse? Is the horse big? Is the horse scary? Do we love the horse? Questions. Can I have it? Can we go? They need to deny. And this is something that we don't usually teach children because children very often pick it up from other children, but these children are not at the pick it up from other children stage. So we need to expressly teach them. I don't like that. I don't want it. It's mine. Give it back. We need to teach them now because we want those phrases to be comfortable for them later when they need them. Every preteen needs the word no and needs to understand that they have the right to say it. And now is when we introduce that idea. And it can feel uncomfortable as parents because we don't want kids going, give it back, it's mine. But at a young age, at a teenager age, like kids want their own things. They should have the right to say what they want and they don't want. And then we respond as caregivers and parents who are either going to give in or tell them that's inappropriate or whatever. But we have to give them those words. Exclaims, wow, yeah, yay. That shared joy is so important and super expressive, important for teachers and other people they're going to run into. And orders, get it, I need it, that one, because we need language that does everything. If all we have is language that names, we are very, very limited. That is very useful for caregivers and not great for kids. We need that aspect, but that is the most frequently taught and least useful aspect to find out who a child is and bring them to a point where they're expressing their own wants and needs. All right, so stage 2, that was stage 1. Stage 2, we're going to take the gestalts that we trained, not the ones that they choose, because those are their babies. They're not gonna touch them. But if let's say we taught, let's get out of here when it's time to go and want some more when they're hungry. We can then break these apart. So the gestalts we use are pretty important because we've got to be able to break them apart. So we can say, let's get some more. Want to get out of here? And if you've got a kiddo that's really comfortable with these gestalts, it's kind of like going from the big Duplo blocks all the way down. So what we've done is we've taken a building that they already have and we've broken it up and hooked it together. And they go, oh, you can take these apart. Oh. And that is the first introduction to the idea that you can break up ideas and change them around to mean different things. So the gestalt phrases that we choose have to be ones that we can break up. Single word gestalts are very difficult. So one of the things that gets trained a lot is more, right? How do we break up a single word? We don't. If more means, I want more Cheerios, I want to watch the TV longer, I'm not ready to go to bed, I need extra hugs, I'm sad. If more means all those things, we cannot then break it up to make it make different things. So single words are not where this child is. That is not what we should be teaching. That's not where we should be communicating. We want things that can break up and move. So for example, another one is open. Open is a big one. And I used to do it all the time. Open, open. You can't break it up. If open means open the door, close the door, open that cabinet because I'm still hungry. If it means all these different things, then the child is stuck with that one word. It's not that we don't teach them open, but we teach, let's open the door. Because then we can teach, let's close the door once they start mixing it up. And open means what it's supposed to mean. It doesn't mean this whole host of things. Okay. So rote response training is not what we're looking at for GLP kids. That's not where we want to be, ideally. All right, so stage 3, this is where we have that magic 2 words. You remember the ones that were highlighted? Those go together. This is when we flip over to the more analytical understanding. And what we're looking at is we are looking at, and this is directly taken from the book. There's more, no more, get more, get more me. No, get some, get more you. And what they're doing is they're working on those single words and what those single words mean. At this point, we are down to the little Legos. Now, they are still breaking them up and looking at them and seeing how they go together. So what we are going to do is we are going to fill their word backpack. This is where vocabulary comes into play, and it is so important. The difference, what's the difference between a road and a highway? What's the difference between happy and excited? There are subtle differences. There's no such thing in the American language as a synonym. There are things that are close, but everything has a an impression behind it, an emotion connected to it. And what we need to do is make sure that we are separating the words out for these kids. Now, most kids are ready to get talking. The second we start breaking stuff up, they're like, I got it. And then they'll start mitigating with stuff that's useful to them, stuff around the house, things they do every day. We don't want them to skip stage 3. So we're going to look at nouns, and adjectives and nouns. This is where a lot of people will say, my kid is in stage 3, they do single words. So it's a dog, it's a cat, it's a horse. First of all, that's a stage 2, because it's a, in that case, is a gestalt, and they're adding single words onto the end of it. But even if they're doing that, that doesn't tell us anything about the dog, the horse, the cat. The information there is so limited. But people are very comfortable. In other words, I want a cracker, I want a cookie, I want to go outside, the I want a gestalt is very popular, because at least you get an idea of what the child wants, right? Because at this point, kids can get pretty frustrated and pretty emotional because they can't communicate what they want. So you're like, at least I can help my kid, I can give them something they want. If they use it, it's fine. But what we should be doing is gummy bears? Gummy bear snack? Now? What? And we're doing single words. So another one is like, so that I've got the puppy. Kid loves to play with the stuffed puppy. We put the puppy on her head and we go, puppy head? Huh? No. Puppy slide. And we slide the puppy down, right? And we do different things with the puppy jumping, puppy running. And we do all these things. And this is where we're getting those individual words in, and they start understanding that individual words have individual meaning. Now, depending on how old your child is, we're not expecting a 3-year-old to have college level vocabulary, but this is where they start understanding that one word cannot be directly substituted for another. They start looking for the right word. They start understanding what single words are, what vocab is, how it works. Okay. And this is, again, the first stage where analytical and Gestalt language processors overlap. Stages 4, 5, and 6, this is joyful for everyone. When you get a kid that gets to this stage, it's very exciting. And it's marked by a change in production. The phrases are self-corrected or self-created, and grammar is everywhere. The grammar makes no sense. So you're going to get a kid who is using a stage 1, who is using a phrase like, mother, please bring me the bread. And you're going to be like, well, their grammar is pretty good. And then later on, they're going to turn around in stage 4 and go, it's going up the potty. She's washing in a bathtub. And you're going to be like, what happened to the grammar? And what happened was the first one was a gestalt. The first one was memorized. It wasn't pieced together. That whole thing was a gestalt. When they start finally recognizing the tiny little Legos and they start building their own communications, it's a mess. Just like when you give a kid Legos and they can realize they can build their own thing the first time. They're just sticking everything together. What's super exciting is that if you know the kid, if it's your kid, if you work with this kid, you will understand what they are trying to tell you. And this is usually the first time you will know that what they are saying comes from their own experience. They'll tell you how their day was at school. They'll tell you that their cousin was mean to them. They'll tell you that they don't like that for dinner. And you start getting a sense of who they really are and what they really like, don't like, want. This is our first window into who they actually are. At this point, we are not worried about grammar. We are not worried about grammar at all. We celebrate. We go, and we listen to what it is they're saying. What we do is we don't correct, we're going to model. So we rephrase without comment. We don't point to our mouth. We don't lean in. We just go, oh, wow. She was going up to the potty and then having a bath in the bathtub. I see her. Wow. So we can always model without expectation and without pressure, but we don't start to do this until they are in stages 4, 5, and 6 for sure. Now, no kid is fully in one stage or another. It's very unusual. The first stage is usually they hang out there a while. But once they use stage 2, we're going to start hearing 3s pop up. They're always going to use stage 1s. Gestalt language processors love their gestalts and they always return to them. They're their babies. It's okay. And when they're stage 4, you're going to hear them start to, especially once they're in stage 2, you're going to hear them try those stage 4s out. And that's when we have to make sure we don't skip the stage 3. But it's there. And then once, at this point, the speech takes over with progressive grammar learning, which we have speech language pathologists have all sorts of charts where we can, determine what's supposed to come earliest as far as grammar development. And what we're going to see here is we're going to see where the speech language goals and the home goals are very much like those early analytical processing goals with kids who aren't getting the pronouns or aren't getting the irregular past tense verbs, or it's going to look that's going to look more like traditional speech therapy once we get to that point. All right, this is an overview. Just if you want to take a quick look at it, once we are 50% in any stage, the SLPs are looking at the next stage, okay? But they will use all of it at once. Okay, so my child is using single words all the time. How do you know that they're a Gestalt language processor? So this is very common. Most children we see have been introduced to language by parents who are analytical processors. And often this has been codified by educators or ABA or sadly other well-meaning therapists. And I say this as someone who did this for a long time. I did not know about this for a long time, and it is heartbreaking. If you see resistance in your therapist, if you see resistance in your educators, a lot of the reason we see the resistance is because it is heartbreaking to realize that you've been essentially not serving the kid the best way that you can serve the kid, and you've been missing things. It's pretty hard. Know that this is a pretty universal experience for anyone with an older kid or anyone who didn't know about this. And there are many, many pediatricians out there that don't know about this. There are many, many therapists that still don't know about this. It's getting out there, it's picking up steam. But if you didn't know about it, it wasn't because you did something wrong. It was because it's not out there. We're doing this, part of that is what we're doing today, getting it out there, reaching as many people as possible, because it makes the biggest difference for these kids. But this means that there are very few kids that I see that are only gestalts. A lot of them have single words because they've been working on single words in school, with therapists, wherever they happen to be, with parents who really want to help them. Certainly before I knew about this, my instinct was open, right? That's what I was doing because that's my instinct. It takes a very different way of going about this. So just because you have a kiddo who's producing single words doesn't mean that's what they're thinking. They may have learned that the only way they're going to be understood is if they give you single words. So they've got a whole gestalt in their head, but you're just hearing the final word. Or you've got a kid that has a motor problem, and when they use the big long gestalt, it's not clear, but they know they can say that final word. So they're going to give you that final word. There can be truly mixed kiddos who do both, who understand the single word idea, but prefer the sound and the music of Gestalt language processing. And so they're developing in both arenas at the same time. That's absolutely possible. The big clue that I find is emotion. Where do they go when they're dysregulated? Where do they go when they're stressed out? Does language get silent? That's a big clue. Language is still up here because we produce it in our head before we produce it out of our mouth. Is it silent? Then they're probably Gestalt processors. Do they sing to themselves? Probably Gestalt processors. We have one kiddo who uses ABCs to make it clear how they are feeling. A, B, C, D, E, F, G gets sung. And if they're happy, it's a happy sound. And if they're angry, that is the angriest ABC song you ever heard in your life. They are outraged and the ABCs will tell you. So when they're dysregulated or emotional, where do they go? Do they go to those single words or not? If they don't go to those single words, then there is some Gestalt processing in there. And that's one of the clues. All right, great. That's a lot of information. What does this mean for me? Thanks for all that. Wow, thanks, speech pathology. Why is all that information important for parents and caregivers? Well, we are stoked you asked, fam. Here come activities. All right, so if you, I see some of you out there have small people. If your space is not super loud and you feel like you can participate, go ahead and unmute for now. If you would like to participate. Thanks, Nan.
Sure. As long as my dogs don't bark.
Yes. Okay, so this activity is going to be the first day of preschool. And if I'm going to ask questions, and if you think you know, just shout out. Don't worry about it. Okay. All right. So, today is the first day of preschool class. Mama has dropped you off with her usual "I love you" and a kiss, and you're about to enter the world of standardized peer behavior for the first time. In the past, you found words not to be very effective, but there's toys everywhere here. It smells like the fish tank, and there's so much to play. There's so much Play-Doh to pretend not to be eating. Why does Play-Doh look good and not taste good at all? As the feeder steps in front of you, you hear him say, "Ahers, bubs and putts, interfate, Shirtopsia parage." Interfate, Shirtopsia parage. What do you think he's asking? Anyone guess? It's the first day, so he's going to help. He's going to go out and he's going to take you and he's going to sit you in the circle. He's going to use his hands to encourage you to come in and have you sit in a circle. Aha! Right? It's your first day. All kids need help on the first day. The teacher kindly moves to you and shows you where to go. Great job. All right, that's the first week. Week 2. Last week was confusing and loud, but there are snacks, apparently goldfish crackers. So, compliments to the chef. Here comes the Tiefer, and he says, "Interfate, Shirtopsia parage." What do you do?
Circle, go back to the reading circle.
Yeah, go back to the reading circle, sit in a circle. There you go, you got it. You got it, you got this preschool thing. You don't have to worry about it. Now, all day, there are a lot of sounds that go on around you that don't have to do with you. The teachers talking to other people, you hear those, that's not you. Teachers talking to other students, that's not you. So you know that sounds go with different things. The Tiefer is beginning to think you're a little slow. You're always kind of behind, but by keeping a sharp eye out and memorizing sounds, you know basically what's expected. So when the order comes through, you know what to do. You are getting a great report from the Tiefer to Mama that you have this stuff down, ready for college, all good. Week 3, you come in. The Tiefer has a new friend. She's going to be helping today. That's awesome. She's got nice hair and smells like cookies. It's going to be a good day. You are playing and you hear "Ahers, bubs and putts, Hindaskami paraj felik prum." What's going on around you? Just like all day. Sounds like that going on all the time. Don't mean anything. So you keep playing. You hear "Hindaskami paraj felik prum." She stops and scowls. You're playing with the blocks all day long. Sounds move around you with no purpose. You are waiting for "Interfate, Shirtopsia paraj." Suddenly, someone grabs you by the arm. You're looking up into a frustrated, bothered face. Uh-oh. She says again, "Hinskami paraj felik prum." Do you nod? Do you say yes or no? The other kids are starting to laugh at you. The new person is even angrier now, and you see her talking to the Tiefer. So what happens is at the end of the day, the teacher tells your mother about you had a very hard day. He knows that you know how to come to the rug without a problem. He's not sure why you're choosing blocks instead of listening to the group. Maybe you had an attention problem. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're just not ready to be a good kid. Or maybe you're just really not all that smart. The school social worker gives you a test of cognition where she asks questions that you have to answer. You can't answer them. And you are labeled learning impaired. And you don't know why, but you've been moved out of your classroom. and that is your first school experience. When we think about Gestalt processing and why it is important, that is why it is important. It starts early. When these children are a year old, we start looking for the first word. Like hawks, we start looking for the first word. I see kids who are 14 months old who are already silent. They have already learned that people are confused when they try to communicate and that it's easier not to try. I have little kids who don't understand anything and will answer everything with, yep, because they want to get along. That's one thing when they're 3. What happens when they're 15 and someone wants them to do something and uses words that they don't know? And because they've been trained to it, they go, yep, and they wind up in trouble. The world, when you don't understand what people are asking of you, is a very scary place. And it happens very, very early. Anxiety is extremely common in kids with Gestalt language processing, and it's deep. And we're going to talk about the best way to address it. But one of the first things we need to do to hear language, to develop language, is create safe spaces and really be safe. And that's where a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about comes in. It's very different and it's not going to be comfortable, but it is absolutely necessary for these kids. All right. So this is a lot of that same thing. When we think about our treatment, we must first use our perspective and empathy. Words come with judgment. Judgmental overtones from our very first experiences as babies. Is our babbling met with interest or with silence? And what someone has to say must always, always be more important than how they say it. That goes for people with disfluencies. That goes for people with articulatory differences. That goes for people who use AAC devices. However they are communicating, what they have to say must always be more important. And without a safe place to fall, our clients will never try to leap. Your kiddos will never try if they don't feel like they can fall. All right, so let's start at the very beginning. What the Sam Hill is going on with my kiddo? It's as if they are in a room by themselves. I feel like they don't even hear me. You talk and get nothing. There's no response. This is directly from Meaningful Speech. Choosing gestalts for minimally or non-speaking children. The blues are important. The most important is this yellow in the middle. If your child appears not to be using spoken language to produce gestalts, keep in mind that just because a child is not using spoken language doesn't mean they are without language or do not have gestalts of their own. Language is generated first in our mind before we produce the speech sound to articulate our thoughts with our spoken language. Every child I see, I assume that they have a world of language and experience going on in their head, because over and over and over again, I find simply that they do. I have yet to find a child that has no words up there. Yeah. There could be many reasons they're not using them, but it's all up there. So assume it's up there. What we're trying to do is make a safe space for those words to come out. Listen to the mumbling to themselves. If you have a child that you notice while they're playing, they're moving their mouth, they're telling a story. It may be a Gestalt story. You may not understood if you heard it, but boy, they're telling a story. What a joy and a privilege if we are allowed to hear what that story is, whatever it is. So we want to make a place where they feel like they can do that out loud, right? So the first order is to listen. This took me a very long time. I am still not great at it. If you are not great at listening to your small child all day, every day, please understand that is very normal. If you are not great at listening to your teenager all day, every day, your middle schooler, please understand that is so normal. But we have to try. We have to do the best we can. So we need to pull back our language. More silence, less talking from the adult. We need to increase those sensory supports. This is where OT comes in. Know whether your child regulates by, talk to your OT. I'm not an OT. Talk to your OT. Does your child regulate by deep joint stimulation? Does your child regulate by jumping? Does your child regulate by in quiet? Do they regulate with lots of noise. Each kid's going to regulate differently. It's super important to get that body right. Deal with the lion first, and then the language comes. Also observe and listen. You want to look at their interests. What are they interested in? What causes their mouth to move the most? Because motor and or speech development may be interfering with spoken language, you can keep Gestalt shorter to reduce motor demands. I do this for a lot of folks. It's fine. Some examples of Gestalts we can use. Let's go. What's next? It's so fun. Want to play? Help me. Come on. We don't have to use big, long ones, especially for those kids that have trouble with big, long words. I will include something that is, I know there were some questions about augmentative devices. This can all be done with an AAC device. What we need to do is we need to add another page that includes those gestalts that the kid likes to use. Very often songs that they can get to, or phrases that they enjoy. We can add those as separate pages. We don't need, I know a lot of these are controlled by schools or by other SLPs, but if we can add those pages, we give them access to language. We don't necessarily have to delete the rest. But just keep in mind that AAC should be modified to support that Gestalt language development. Just like we're not going to do open for a speaking child, we're not going to do open for an AAC child. We're going to go open the door. It's going to be a whole phrase, right? This takes a little working, but we can do it. We can get it done. All right. So our first clue, we pull back our language, more silence, less talking, increase sensory supports, observe and listen. The most effective way to show compassion to another is to listen rather than to talk. Our sensory seekers. We're going to talk about our habit of getting louder when we're trying to get our child's attention. We feel they're not understanding us. All right. So if we have a reluctant communicator, we got a kid who's not talking to us very much. Anxiety, 99.9% is part of the issue. Try dialing down instead of up. So here's, I don't know if you guys remember this movie.
Monique, enjoying your stay in our town?
I say, are you enjoying your stay in our town?
She doesn't speak English, Dad.
Of course she does. Are you enjoying your stay?
It's no good, Al.
All right. So I don't know if you guys have seen that, but we have folks all over the place who think that getting louder will help with comprehension. It's a joke. That doesn't work. Being louder doesn't work. Saying the same thing over and over again doesn't work. If what you're doing isn't working, we need to change it up. Okay. So I wanted to talk about Eleanor and Grant from the facility. We had a kiddo that wasn't moving forward, and we had a therapist who took a speech therapist who decided to take an entire session and not say anything. They kept the lights dim, they kept things playing, and they responded to every sound that this kid made. They repeated the sounds the kid made quietly. They said, yes, oh. And they said just tiny little things very quietly and listened to the child. They came back and said this was the most connected this child had ever been. This child was asking for their attention, was making noises on his own for the first time, was trying to share items, go back and forth in a conversational way, simply because it was quiet enough that he felt like he could. So we have seen success with it very specifically. With that silence, we're going to start to hear sounds. We'll start to hear songs. Kids love songs. Songs are the couple reasons they love songs. One of the things is they say that a lot of kids with Gestalt language processing have perfect pitch, which is why a lot of times you'll start to sing to them and they'll tell you to stop it. We used to think that that was some sort of social thing, but they now think that it's just because they know how it should be sung, and we're just not doing a good job. But they love songs because songs don't come with a requirement. They know what's coming. They've heard this one before. And they know they're not expected to do anything. It's not a question. There's no setup. They're not going to have to respond. They love songs. Simple phrases, hums, clicks, babbles. If you don't know what it is, and you don't know what it means, you just got gobbledygook, you have no idea. What we do at this stage, the communicative connection is so much more important than intelligibility or a communication of specific ideas. Join in the fun. If the kid is going da 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 da, go da da da. Join in. It's safe. We're all on the same page. What's much more important is that we are in it together. Oh no. It's another speech nerd. This means we have more activities. All right, so I was going to do this with a volunteer from the audience, but I think it's, I don't know if anyone's feeling it. If we're not feeling it, I have a different idea. I had a different idea just in case. At the last time I gave this, it was in person, so I made people stand up. I see you, Tanya. All right. So one of the good examples, this is just another example, okay? Somebody suggested that, like, how do we do it from our point of view? We do, imagine you got, okay, here's what I want everybody to do. Are you ready? I am going to say, I'm going to count to 3. And when I get to 3, I want everyone to do a backflip, a standing backflip. Okay? Ready? 1, 2, I see you, Nancy. Ready? I'm waiting. I'm excited. All right. 1, 2, 3. No? Well, I made myself. Okay, here's the deal. No dinner for anybody until you do a standing backflip. Standing, I'm going to give you a visual. You're going to stand and you're going to backflip. Okay? I'm being really clear about what I want. You guys got it? Ready? 1, 2, 3. This is not, okay. You guys. So the question is, why do we do this? Why do we do this instead of single words? And the answer is because this is where the child is. I was perfectly clear that I wanted a backflip. What if I said, okay, all right, we can't do a backflip. The first thing I want you to do is think about a backflip. And then maybe we'll do a front roll. Maybe some of you can do somersaults. Maybe that's achievable. I'm not sure I could at this point, but maybe that's achievable. What we do is, if we're never going to be successful at it, we can't put the bar there. Nobody does things that they can't do. Nobody repeats, tries things over and over and over again that they're never going to get. Being set up for failure is not something that makes people move forward. They have to be successful. And this is true for learning anything. When you learned math, it was like this. When you learned anything, it was like this. This is true for language. We have to put the bar where they are. Okay. Oh, here we go. So I'm going to show something. It does have, Rob, you might want to mute it. I don't know. It does have a little bit, the title has a little bit of swearing. All right. So it says, why are you doing this? Isn't this sort of your bag and not mine? And I'm going to say, do you not remember COVID Zooms? All right, we're going to have a little bit of question at the very beginning. Let's see. Can you guys see it okay?
Your sound is a video call with shitty Wi-Fi. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, 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 boop. Hey!
Hey!
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see eyes.
You're coming in with the Wi-Fi, something like a problem that.
At McDonald's. Matt, hello? Mister's house. Do you got? Oh, now it looks like both of our things. Boop, 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 boop.
Let him back on the call. Am I the only one?
Hey guys, Hey, sorry.
Your voice only?
I'm doing voice only because of the Wi-Fi. I'm trapped under a train.
I actually dropped off. Did you say you dropped under?
Is anyone? Hello. I'm just going to use the chat function. Your sound.
Okay, so the reason we do this is what the experience is like for GLPs. They get some of it, and then they don't get a bunch of it. And then they get some of it, and then they don't get a bunch of it. And I know a bunch of us, when COVID first hit, and we were stuck on Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi was bad, and it took us 15 minutes of every call to just try and connect with somebody else. It was exhausting. Trying to communicate and not getting through is exhausting. So that is why we're doing all of this. It's super important. You're going to see your kid is going to be so fatigued because it's exhausting. So we need them to experience success. We want them to feel like, yeah, I got it. I got it. I know what I'm doing. Not a problem. Because that's the only way they'll try again. And the only way we get good at things is to keep trying. So far, we have empathy, being quiet, listening, and repetition. We repeat what they say, we listen to what they're saying. The next big move is to ditch the questions. This is, without question, the most difficult part of this process. We love them. I love them. I love questions. Why do we love them? We love them because it demands a response. We say, how was your day? What do you do if I've got my preteen and I say, how was your day? And they say, that's insulting. I have asked you a question. You have to answer me. Kids learn very early on that no means they have to answer. I have had a kid tell me straight up, I don't answer questions because that just means you're going to ask more questions. And he's not wrong. What we need to do is leave the questions behind. This is so hard. It took me 2 years. It's so hard to leave the questions behind. What we need to do first is notice how often we're asking them. Start putting a tick mark in a little box every time you hear yourself ask a question. Do this for an hour in your morning routine, just to see how many direct questions you ask kids. Can you get your shoes? What do you want for breakfast? Was that good? Can you put it away? Where's your coat? Did daddy go, did you brush your teeth? Can you brush your teeth? Can you get your toothbrush? Can you put the toothpaste on the toothbrush? Like, how many questions do we ask throughout the morning? A question requires a response. And if you are in a position, if you're someone in a position where you either don't have the language to understand the question, or you don't have the language to answer the question, these things are a constant quiz that you are constantly failing. And it's exhausting. What we can do as communicators, as parents, is we can stop with the questions. Now, this is hard to do, but we absolutely can do it. So let's talk about some questions that we ask our kids regularly. Anyone, you can put them in chat. You can just unmute. Just tell me some questions that you ask your kids. Anything.
You said to put it in the chat.
You can put it in the chat, or you can unmute, whatever you want to do.
Oh. Do you have any homework?
Oh, do you have any homework? Great. Another way to put that is, I wonder if you have homework today. And they can answer or not answer. Now remember, this is with our Gestalt Language Processing kids. What do you want to eat? Okay. What do you want to eat? Another way to put this is, I want to eat eggs. I want to eat bacon. I want to eat toast. And what we're going to do is we're going to give them the language that we want to hear. I have a lot of homework today. I don't have a lot of homework today. Or I have a lot of homework today, yes. I have a lot of homework today, no. And then they can say yes or no. When we hear language, it cues the same neural connections that cue when we speak. When we model language, we are actually cueing the words in their head that they might want. They might want toast, they might want eggs, they might want bacon, but it may be hard for them to find those words. If we are cueing it by saying, I want toast, I want bacon, I want eggs, we've cued those words up in their head. And so if they need, I don't know, the first time they turn around and they go, I want eggs, you're gonna be like, yes, they told you what they wanted. What we also do by this kind of modeling, when we kind of put it that way, is that we teach them that we're never going to ask a question or require something of them where we're not going to provide language that they can use to respond to us. And after a while, you get used to like offering different options, and you get used to the fact that if they say none of those things, that's not what they want. So you go, I want eggs, I want bacon, I want toast, and they're silent. And you go, I want cereal. And I go, cereal. And you go, oh, okay, got it. And you start learning that if they haven't picked up what you've modeled, it's because you haven't hit on what they're looking for. All right. Would you ask the question first and then model the statement? Thanks for putting that in the chat. No, nope. You'd never ask the question, because by the time I'm seeing those kids, they know that questions require a response. That is something that they have internalized. So you can do that, but first you have to earn their trust that you're going to provide the language. So I do sometimes ask questions when I'm around kids. I do it on purpose, and then I also do it because I goof up. I used to start every therapy with, what do you want to do today? Every therapy. So that was a habit. It was my own little gestalt. It was my own little, my brain's in the space, let's go, right? What I meant was, I'm paying attention to you. But what I would say is, what do you want to do today? And kids would just zip. First thing out of my mouth was a question. I got nothing. What I learned was answering my own question relieved that expectation. So you're going to still ask questions. You're not going to mean it, but you're going to ask questions. So you're going to say, what do you want to eat by accident? And then you're going to go, oh, that was a question. So you go, there are so many things we could eat. I could eat bacon. I could eat eggs. So you just follow it through. You answer your own question, and then you model possible answers. That's great. Do that for a little while, and your kid's going to figure out, oh, wow, questions don't mean that I'm going to be put on the spot. Someone can ask a question and then will give me what I need in order to respond. So that's a good way to deal with that. Do you have to go to the bathroom was one that I saw as well. It was like, I have to go to the bathroom. I don't have to go to the bathroom. I have to go to the bathroom. Yes. I have to go to the bathroom. No. Now, the thing I want to remind you is when we model things like, and we'll talk about later, like modeling big emotions, giving them the language that they want to use for those moments, we have to respond as if they said it. So if you say, I have to go to the bathroom. Yes. I have to go to the bathroom. No. And they say, no, we go, okay. And then if they wet their pants, we go, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. Yes. You have to say, yes, I have to go to the bathroom. Oh no, let's go to the potty and clean up, right? Like it's, you respond as if it was their idea. You respond as if they told you, I don't have to go to the bathroom, and then wet their pants, right? It's not, we are not giving them the language that we want them to use. We are giving them the language that they want to say. Those things can be very different. Okay. Let's see. All right. So we are going to give them the words. All right. Model what you think they want to say, not for training, but for clarity. So we're not training certain phrases. We're not training, I have to go to the bathroom. We are giving them the words so that when they're ready, they can tell us. Whether that's with a yes and a no at the end so that they can use yes or no, or whether we're going to say, I have to go to the bathroom, I don't have to go to the bathroom, because that's where they are. We can say potty yes, potty no, right? And they can say potty yes if that's where they are. If they continue without stopping. So let's say I've got a kid who's in therapy and they are they're playing with the blocks and I can tell that they're kind of getting bored of them, but I think they want to move on. So I'm like, what's next? Next is puppies. Next is puzzle. And they don't stop what they're doing. I haven't hit on it. They don't want the puppies or the puzzle. If they did, they jump in, right? So we are looking for what Ms. Zakos, Alexandria Zakos, calls the bingo moment. And you can see this on the Instagram for Meaningful Speech, some good examples of this. There's usually a glance, a sideways glance. It's not the same as like, look at me. It's just a little sideways glance, and often it's a smile. Or they may not look at you, but you're gonna say something and they're gonna smile. So you're gonna go, oh, the car did a big crash. And they're gonna go, and you're gonna be like, got it. That's what they were thinking of. They were thinking that that car did a big crash. That bingo moment where they glance at you, it doesn't even have to come with a smile. So if they're hesitating at the top of a slide and I go, oh, the slide is scary, and they glance at me, I'm like, it's really scary. And they glance at me, I know I've hit on what it is that they're thinking. I have given words to what is in their head. Either I am giving words that they don't have that they were looking for, or those are the exact words that were in their head and it just came out of my mouth and they're like, yep, that's it. Right? Use the intonation and the intensity they are demonstrating. If you have a kid who is dysregulated and screaming, going, I'm really upset, is not going to do it. They will know that you did not get it, that you don't understand how upset they are, and you are not there with them. If they are screaming and you want to give them words, you go, I am so upset. I am so angry. I don't like it. And you go, oh my gosh, I hear you. You don't like it. I don't like it. Wow, that's a big feeling. But you can also respond as a parent. I can't tell you how many times I model with kids. They'll be sitting there and I'm like, time to go. And they don't do anything. And I'll go, oh, I don't want to go. And they'll go, I don't want to go. And I go, I know, buddy, but our time is up. We can come back and play next time. You are giving them the words they want and then responding as if they said it. Giving them the words they want is not acquiescence. It is not giving in to a tantrum. It is not, all it means is I'm here with you. I have received your communication and there are words that go with that. Okay. The hardest part is to be sure we're modeling what they want to say, not what we want to hear. I had one poor mom who was just stressed to the gills and she had a kid who was screaming in front of her and she went, I need to calm down now. And I felt so bad for mom because immediately she went, oh, like she knew that that's not what the kid wanted to say, but she desperately wanted her child to calm down. So she wasn't giving the child the words for them. She was giving the child words for what she wanted. It's really hard to do that as a parent, to model what they want. Also, when you're using pronouns, use it from their point of view. I talk about this all the time. If you are saying, do you need the bathroom? Do you need the bathroom? You need the bathroom. They're going to walk up to their preschool teacher and say, you need the bathroom. And their preschool teacher hopefully is like, oh, buddy, okay, let's go. But there are plenty of preschool teachers who go, I don't need the bathroom. What? So that's when those words are great. Let's use the bathroom. It's inclusive. It feels a little less strange than modeling with like an I, like a first person. But it's okay to model, I need the bathroom. I need the bathroom, yes. I need the bathroom, no. And then what they'll get is, I need the bathroom. Pronouns don't come into it until 4, 5, and 6. Pronouns are at the end. We're not worried about pronouns. We're not worried about he, she. We're not worried about they, them. Just give them the words that they need to get through explaining what it is that they want. Model and react as if they'd said for their words and look for that bingo. There'll be a pause in the movement. There will be a look at you, a small smile. Once you start noticing them and once they get used to the idea that you are somewhere safe and you're offering them language, you start to see it all the time. All right, so these tips and tricks, I think I talked about all of these. High emotion, high challenge gestalts will always be present. When they are upset, you may be hearing those, I guess I'm dating myself now, not Dora quotes, but Bluey quotes. You may hear Bluey quotes forever and ever and ever and ever. They're going to love them and they're always going to have them. They're going to be super upset. You're going to hear Bluey quotes. Okay. They're their babies. And what it has such emotional import to them. It's very important communication. Those stage ones involves an emotion, a thought. It is for them. It's kind of like, have you ever smelled a smell and you're immediately back in that moment? That's what these gestalts are. They're trying to bring you a whole package of information about how they feel, what they're thinking. Those are super important. Offer choices at levels and offer visual cues. So I want juice, I want milk. That can sometimes make it clear to them that you're giving them a choice, you're presenting options. I tend to do it in sets of 2 just because I've got 2 hands, so it's easier. But as they get older, it gets easier. But the yes or no is often useful. And the palms like this or the palms like this are very non-threatening. It's sort of a, I'm giving you choices, I'm presenting options as opposed to demanding something. So those are helpful. All right, so time to practice modeling. We did this in person. I think it might be a little more difficult over Zoom, but let's see. Let's say I have an elementary school kid and I want to know if they want to, I want to know what they want to do next as far as playing is concerned. So they have a bunch of choice in front of them. How might I find that out? Anyone? This is harder to do than it is in person. In person, I can just call on you. I'm not going to do that over Zoom. All right. So let's talk about modeling also for frustration. I don't want it. So you're going to offer something. You're going to say, I want toast. Yes, no. And they're going to walk away and you're going to go, I don't want breakfast. I don't want to talk about that right now. I don't want it. You can also fill your child's world with language when you're just hanging out. You can go, oh, it's time to make breakfast. I'm going to get the pan. I'm going to get the whisk. I'm going to crack the eggs. I'm going to whip up the eggs. I'm going to put it into the pan. And there are a lot of kids who love this. Again, it's like a smorgasbord of opportunities for them to think about words in a way that is not stressful. You're not requiring a response from them. You're not expecting them to respond to you. You're just filling their world with words that relate to what you're doing. So I know parents who will get to the point and they'll go, when can I stop modeling everything? And you can get there, but I also know older kids that will turn to their family members and say, can you give me my words? Because they have trouble finding it in a hard emotional moment or in a rough time. It's very soothing to have that step up. So that's what modeling is like. These do's and do nots directly from Meaningful Speech. I have them on a sheet that I will send out after we are all done. Do know that they are always attempting to communicate with you. Any script you hear is an attempt at communication. Always nod. So take your conversational turn. They go, blah, 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 blah. Go, yeah. It doesn't matter if you know what they're saying or not. Take your conversational turn in a way that encourages them to continue. Yeah, wow. Repeat back a key word or sound. Follow up and try and discover what the comment means. If you can, does it come from Pippa? Does it come from Bluey? Does it come from something your family says all the time, right? Don't take the scripted comment literally. It is so hard not to do this as an analytical learner, but talking about painting may not be about painting. Talking about jumping may not be about jumping. We need to figure out the context in which it's meant. Usually when we know where it comes from, it's much easier to figure out what it means. But with enough clues, sometimes you can get it. So a good example is a kid that's learning to potty train and using green eggs and ham. They may, when they need to, because they read the book while they sit on the potty, they may come up to you and say, I do not like this, Sam, I am. That means I need the potty. I have a kiddo who is obsessed with the sound of the hair dryers. So when they need the potty, they'll say the hair dryers are going, the hair dryers are loud. And I know that means they need the bathroom. That means I need the bathroom. If you don't know the kid, you don't know what it means. But once you know, it actually, it helps. And we don't teach replacement language. So we don't stop saying, I do not like it, Sam, I am. When the kid says, I do not like it, Sam, I am, we go, I know, I do not like it, Sam, I am. I need the potty. Let's go. You can add your bit in without taking away what they have. We don't want them to get the message that what they're doing is ineffective. We want them to get the opposite message. This is highly effective. I should keep doing this. It's working, right? Acknowledge the meaning you discovered. You figured it out. Oh, I need the potty. Yes, let's go. Got it. I do not like them. Sam, I am. Let's go. Model developmentally appropriate language during teachable moments. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, I want a juice. We're not going to say, I want to. We're going to use phrases that little kids their age would use or teenagers would use. We're going to use phrases, songs, things that are age appropriate, that their peers are going to understand if they're repeating. And you need to plan ahead for more teachable moments. Again, you should be doing this in conjunction with a speech language pathologist who can help. And if you're with POP, that's great. All of our folks are amazing. Our occupational therapists are trained in this and do an amazing job. Speech therapists all do this and they're just phenomenal. And we're just seeing kids zipping ahead with their language. It's really exciting. All right, so movement, you want them to do something. Cues will not be effective unless you use the same language every time. So like we did with it's circle time. If you change up, if it's circle time goes from it's circle time to everybody get together in a circle, that's something completely different. So if you need them to put their shoes on every day, you're going to say time for shoes. It's no good then to say, please put your shoes on. That's a different word. It doesn't mean the same thing. They're waiting for that same cue. I can't tell you how many kids where I say, help me clean up, and they don't move. And the second I start with clean up, they spring into action and they're putting stuff away. They know what the song means. They don't know what my words mean, but they know what the song means. So if you have multiple people caring for your child, come up with phrases that you're using every time for the same thing. So that grandma's got the same language that the aunt has, that the uncle has, that if you can, the teachers and the preschool teachers and the people who are working with those kiddos have, just make sure you all are on the same page, right? If you know that the child is a stage 3 or higher learner and individual words are being developed, at that point, 2 words or simple phrase combos can be used. Get shoes, blue shoes, red shoes. For stage 1 and 2 kiddos, use strong visual cues and demonstrate what you want them to do. Let's go. Let's walk. Let's open the door. You're going to do big movements so that they can get what you mean by context cues while they're adding those words to them. Most kids know good job or I did it. Excuse me. Pardon me. The big one is at the end. Silence is golden. Give space for their words, accept whatever they offer you, and know that it's really important that kids that don't feel comfortable won't share. If they don't feel safe, they won't share. So if they're sharing sounds with you, if they're sharing those communicative turns on their own, not because you're trying to get something or not because we're withholding something, but because they genuinely feel that connection, that's a hugely positive thing. That speaks of significant levels of trust. All right, so I've got a bunch of folks here who mentioned that their kids are also getting mental health services. This is really challenging, as you might imagine. A lot of grownups don't talk about their feelings in a way that are beyond the big 5, happy, sad, angry, the Disney, scared, the Disney movie. Once we get beyond that, people don't really talk about it. A lot of us hide our feelings from our kids, and kids won't understand the connection between cause and effect. So what we have to do is we have to start modeling our feelings and where they come from. So we have to say, oh, the paper ripped. I'm so sad. The paper ripped. I have to do it again. The difference between frustrated and angry, they look the same. Frustrated needs help. Anger needs space. Getting that wrong can be so difficult socially. You've got somebody that's frustrated and you think they're angry and you walk away because they need space, but they need help. Somebody is angry and you jump in to help, but what they need is space to feel their feelings. So these details, we kind of, as adults, we kind of have to develop some of our emotional knowledge so that we can pass that on safely, so that kids will understand that something happens, it changes how we feel, and then it changes how our voice sounds or what we might choose to say. If you're talking to a kid about school and suddenly all you're hearing is Gestalts, let's say they're a stage 3, and how was school today? Or what'd you do in school? Often a good choice is, I wonder what happened in school today. And then you leave it. If you suddenly start hearing songs, Gestalts, they had a rough day. There's a big feeling there, and they're having trouble expressing it to you. Go back with them to the Gestalts. Repeat what they're having to say. Or, oh, maybe a hard day. There's a lot of times I'll ask a kid how school was and they're silent. And I'll go, oh, maybe today was hard. And they'll go, today was hard. Like, they don't know how to tell me today was hard until I give it to them. But if they're not like, it's good, everything's fine, then I give them the words for today was a hard day. And sometimes they'll jump on it. Not always, but quite often. So the idea is many Gestalt language processors have taken damage or developed trauma around communication. Mental health services often requires detailed communication, even from littles. It's really hard. So our goal is to make a safe space for trying these things. We should be coming toward the end. So I had a little kiddo who came up with, we'd been working for a while, and I said, what happens to words, I wonder? And he said, my words fly away. And then we would play after a while and he would get regulated. And he would say, oh. So then we could use words. But we had to play silently for a while in order for him to be able to find them in his pocket. They're there. We just have to give them space. All right, so I am a big believer in all of this. My entire family, I would say, is the technical term is neurodivergent, and that's the accepted term. My kids like the term neurospicy, so that's what we use. Everyone in my family is particularly neurospicy. And the biggest piece is accepting people as they are here now. That sets up success and forward movement. I have yet to meet a child that does not want to learn. I have yet to meet a child out of all of the work that I've done, and honestly, most adults as well, that don't want to improve, get better, figure something out. You guys are all here. You're all working at it. You're all trying. It's a big deal. It's very hard to learn something new. I talk about it. I am not good with numbers at all. And if I had to do a math problem every time I met someone, I would very quickly not leave the house or call anyone. I wouldn't do it. But then I talk about it and I say, but if you gave me $1,000 every time I did a calculation, I would be doing math all day, all day. The idea is to make the payoff so big, chase that dopamine, make the payoff so big that it's worth the effort. I still hate math, but I love $1,000. I would do that. If I made $1,000 every time I did it, I would do it. And I would be frustrated that I had to do it, but it would be worth it. That definitely would be worth it for me. So the idea is we have to make it worth it, right? That's the goal. All right, I don't even know what time it is. Hang on just one second. Oh, nice. We have a half an hour left for questions. Ironically, anyone have any questions? I saw somebody asking, I'm gonna pop into the chat. Someone posted in the Q&A. Oh, Dee, good job. Oh, that was awesome. So what do you want for breakfast, pancakes or waffles? That's great. That's the answer. So what we would say is, you want pancakes? You want waffles? So 2 questions someone wrote regarding the AAC device. Who would add the Gestalt sections? Would the school SLP add them, or would you be able to add them? Usually your SLP can add them. We do sometimes get into, it can be a little tricky with who controls the device and whether the school SLP or the teachers are comfortable with Gestalt language processing. Through POP, we are going to be giving, I'm hoping to rent out a room in the Oak Park Library, and a Sunday or 2 this summer have stuff for local schools, for, that is specifically geared towards educational folks who, it's very, very hard if you're an education provider right now. There is a lot that is focused on early literacy, and this is difficult to mesh with those goals. And a lot of our teachers right now don't have a choice about what their goals are. They don't have a choice about what they work on. So asking them to do it, not only is this hard, is it difficult for them as well, but it's a completely different way of approaching language. Now, what I find is that even kids who are not Gestalt language processors, if you get rid of the questions, everybody is just so much happier. I do this as a baseline with all the kids that I see now, whether they're Gestalt language processors or not, I get rid of the questions because, the tension just comes right down. So there are certainly universal things that will help in the classroom, but there are very specific issues I won't go into here. The AAC device, fingers crossed that your school can help out if they are interested in controlling what is on the device and making sure it's helpful for teachers. We have had instances where, and not here necessarily at POP, but where we put things on and they got taken off by teachers because teachers didn't know what to do with them, didn't know how to respond, didn't understand what it was for. We try and work in conjunction whenever we can with whoever controls the device. And there are devices that are better than others. But we do find that much like speaking, once we offer those AAC cues that are phrases, kid goes right to it. Like once it's useful, it's the child recognizes it as useful and will start to use it. That single word stage is just not, they're just not there. And then it says, how do we get our school SLP on board with this type of speech learning? It's tricky. This, the education it takes to go through the process is detailed. It's a different way of thinking about things. You have to change the way that you speak. This is hard work. And again, like I said in the beginning, there's a lot of guilt that comes with this, right? A lot of SLPs are reluctant to take this on because it means completely changing the way you do things. And it means that kids that you were like, well, this is high as they can get. We've gone as far as we can. Maybe not. Maybe we just set the bar so high that it just wasn't achievable. Maybe we asked them to do a backflip. So the best way to do it is to be inclusive. The best way to do it is to be patient and to understand that it takes a while to learn this. And I said, by the time we get to the end of it, you're not going to be an expert. This is a lot of data. Usually 9 times out of 10, what happens at the end is you have a better idea of what your questions are. And like where maybe you don't know what you feel like you should know, and I certainly was the same when I was doing this. Stage 3 is my nightmare stage. It took me forever to understand stage 3. I've got it now, but boy, that was a rough one for me. And everybody has their stage where they're like, this just doesn't feel natural to me. This is really difficult. But we can all get there, and we'll do training. And the more it gets out there and we're just aware of these kids, and again, we're aware that this is part of a delay, not a disorder, and that the kids that move through these are moving forward. And to the best of their ability, they want to develop language. They want to communicate with us. If they're not, then something's in the way. Can we move that thing out of the way? Can we help? Can we provide the help that they need to ramp onto that communication, however that looks? All right, so those are the 2 questions in the chat. Anybody else have anything for me? If you have any specific questions, feel free to type them up and send me an email, and I will be happy to answer.
Krissy, I want to say thanks for putting this together. It helped
Oh, for sure.
explain a lot of things.
Better than I could.
Yes. yeah. I'm a visual guy, you know.
Good.
And
Well, no, I'm
that
glad it was
was
helpful.
very helpful for me, yeah, personally, yeah.
Good.
And thank
And
you for everything you do.
Oh,
You're
for
very
sure.
good.
Yeah. Hi, I have a question.
Yeah.
So my question is, so how would you cross over with introducing this to the children who use the AAC device? Because my daughter, she uses a AAC device, but she's at the stage where she is only responding with one word. So you were saying, like, instead of asking questions directly, you basically, in other words, put out a scenario and let the child answer it, right? But she is using the AAC device, so she has gotten used to one worded, like responding within one word.
So what I would do is I would pick 2 or 3 questions that come up a lot that you hear yourself asking over and over again. If they have specific things they won't like to watch on YouTube, or if they have specific foods they like to have, or a specific drink. And then I would have a separate page that has the phrase, I want to watch Bluey, I want to watch Rugrats, I don't know, whatever. And you have both of those in there. And then you take the AAC device, if they let you. A lot of kids are very protective of their AAC device, but if they let you take the AAC device, then you can say, push the button. I want to watch Bluey, I want to watch Rugrats, and then hold it out and see if they respond with the whole phrase.
Right. Okay.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, I get it.
It's hard to do. And remember, with the AAC device and any other way of communicating, kids learn to communicate because the people around them are doing that. So with the AAC device, it takes a very long time of you just using the device to communicate before they go, okay, I'll use it. But
Right.
we have to demystify it first.
Mhm.
And if
Okay.
we're comfortable using it to communicate, which means we have to get really comfortable with it. And this is the challenge, right? Hearing parents of deaf children will say the same thing. I'm learning to sign at the same time my child is learning to sign. So I can't model for them where I want them to go next because I'm still at the beginning. This is a challenge it's very tricky, but
Yes.
it has opened the world for so many kids. So many kids that can't find the words or can't use the words. The AAC device is the way in, and we don't give up on it.
Okay. Thank you.
For sure. But it has to be fun. They're going to chase the dopamine. If it's getting them what they want, that dopamine is going to go off. There's a quote, and I really need to research about whether or not this is true, because it's like my favorite quote, and I've seen it come up a lot, but I don't know if it is technically true. But it says something like, we can learn anything through like 400, I think it's 400, 500 repetitions. We can learn anything. Through play, it only takes 10 to 20 repetitions. I don't know if it's scientifically true. It certainly falls in line with what I see, because my belief is that dopamine, from a neurological standpoint, when you get that dopamine going, it locks in that connection. It locks in those neural connections as a positive, and our brain's intention is to go back there where it was good, right? That's that the human brain wants to do. Go back where it was good, do it again, taste like more, I want more. And so what we want to do is we want to kind of chase that dopamine, which is one of the reasons that child-led is so important. Think about the last time you were at a business meeting and everybody was supposed to say something. Think about here now, where I'm going, anybody got any questions? And you're like, Then think about the last time you were with your friends and somebody went, hey, remember that time? And the next thing you know, all 4 of you were like shouting and laughing at each other. The impetus to communicate, that impetus to talk, is born out of a need to connect with somebody else on whatever level, whether it's joy, anger, whatever, but a need to be heard, a need to connect with somebody else. We are never going to get somebody to practice enough by telling them what they need to say. The only way to do it is give them a reason to do it. And then if that dopamine's going, it's locked in. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope it's okay that we're ending a little bit early, but we're good. Again, if you think of anything afterwards, I'm going to send out emails to everybody who attended. This is being recorded, so it'll be available. You want your child's teacher to see it. You want your a family member to see it who helps with your child. You want whomever to see it. We can go ahead and make it available. But it was wonderful to see you today. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Krissy.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Krissy. And thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. We look forward to doing more of these again soon.